Okay. So you're a proctor here. This is your workshop. You know where all the health and safety stuff is. I'm not going to show you where all that is. It's in fact, it's actually changed since I was here last. So whenever you're ready to get going, I'll start the time. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's do it.
You'll have 3.5 hours.
Alright.
Hold on 1 second. Starting right now, go ahead.
Alright, I'm going to start by getting my personal CO detector going and make sure I stay safe this whole time. If at any point during the inspection, if it goes over 35, I want to quit working immediately and get to some fresh air. Currently, outside of the home, I have 0 parts per million. I'm going to keep an eye on that just to see what it does throughout the inspection here. So I'm going to take a look at our file here and see what is going on. So let's make sure they got the initial audit in here. So I'm seeing a work order, and on the work order they're asking for some blown-in insulation. R38, so that's probably the attic. Some R25 bats, that's probably for the floor. Sealing the ducts, wrapping the ducts. A little bit of air sealing, window replacement, wrapping some water pipes, and installing some soffit vents. So let's see what the auditor called for here. Alright, so here's our audit by Mr. Expert Auditor here. So, looking pretty basic, no mold, no lead. This is a new house. He wants to insulate the attic because we only have the R11, so he wants to bring it to R38. Showing the ducts is uninsulated, so that's what I'm calling for. R19 on the ducts. Showing the floor as partially insulated, partially uninsulated. So we'll take a look at that. We've got our diagnostics, the blower door results. So it started at 1200 CFM. We want to see if they brought that down.
Oh, and by the way, I'll be playing the role of the client or homeowner.
Okay.
If you need to ask me any questions.
The mold forms, provided a mold pamphlet, and the ASHRAE. So we'll see also if it meets the ASHRAE standard. So when I first arrive into the home, I'm going to want to talk to the homeowner, find out their experience with everything. So if you want to fill in for the homeowner for me. So how do you feel about the work that was done at the house? Do you think they did a good job?
Well, I was gone most of the time. I wasn't around when they were here, so they didn't leave any messes, so I was happy with that.
No messes. And do you think your house is more comfortable now?
I haven't really noticed. It's been pretty quick. Hasn't been that cold, so I haven't really been paying attention.
And did they keep all their scheduled appointments?
Yeah, as far as I know.
And you weren't here while they were doing any of the work, but they didn't leave any messages?
Yeah, I wasn't around, but I didn't even notice, that they were here by the time I got back.
And overall, would you say you're pretty satisfied with
Yeah,
how things
yeah,
went?
we'll know when I start getting bills, and I can compare this winter to last, but
And as far as you know, they completed all of the work?
well, I haven't gone underneath or up in the attic. I haven't really checked.
All right.
I wouldn't even know what to look for. That's why I need your help here.
So do you know if anybody came out while they were doing the work to inspect it?
No, because I wasn't around.
Okay. So definitely want to have in-progress inspections done, spot checks, and make sure the things are being done properly as they go along, like air sealing before they go in the attic, and just making sure they have all their proper paperwork, their MSDS, their lead safe if that's applicable on the job. Hopefully somebody came by and did that.
Hopefully.
So I think that's all the questions I have for you, Mr. Homeowner. So let's do a little walk around the house and see how things look from the outside. Look for any missed opportunities and health and safety issues. So I'm seeing house pretty new. No paint on the house, which could be a water intrusion problem. And here's our new window. It's looking pretty good, but no caulking, so that's could be water intrusion as well as some air leakage there. And it doesn't look like this air conditioner was addressed at all. Looking pretty leaky for air as far and rain moisture getting in there. But there is a new window. Could be airtight. Then the auditor called for some low venting. I see there's the 2 soft vents here. So there's 2 of the 4. As well as we got our bathroom fan down there. It's got a little insulation coming through. Hopefully we got that vented properly. And when they're putting these roof vents on, especially if they're on the roof, they want to use the right kind of personal protection equipment, harness that was properly secured so they don't have that potential of falling off the roof, and using the right ladder that's tall enough where they're not overstretching, which could also be a hazard. That looks like probably the only thing that they would need fall protection is those vents. Now, that power coming into that extension cord on the roof, that could be a little bit of a hazard. The guys working up there, they could trip on that, or could come and plug. Be a little bit of shock hazard there. well as there's a lot of debris around the house, like could be trip hazard, fall hazard. Get cut on that. So I'm seeing over here, you know, maybe some missed opportunities, air sealing. Could have done some caulking there. And here's where our gas is coming in. And propane tank's pretty close to the house. We want to check with the local code to make sure it meets that. Probably needs to be further away. We have some propane for our heating. Got some sort of air vent here. I'll take a look at that when we go inside.
I should have mentioned this before, but just for the purposes of this test, just ignore that vent.
Okay. So over here we got two more of our soft vents. Those look pretty adequate. And then up on the roof we got our B vent, our flue pipe for the furnace and maybe the water heater. And we got our side door here. Also not caulked. Could lead to some air intrusion. See how good this door fits. Pretty new door. New weather stripping. Looks very good. Got our door threshold and suite there, looks good. So I think that's about it for the exterior of the home. I'm gonna grab a measuring tape and then we can take a look underneath. So, and then head under over here. Head on. When entering a crawl space or confined space, we would want to wear the proper protection, including a respirator, maybe some eye protection, coveralls, gloves, proper shoes or boots. And we want to ensure that the contractors, when they're doing the work, use this equipment as not to expose themselves to any harmful contaminants or get hurt while doing the work. Within the fiberglass, we're going to use the proper respirator. Now the auditor mentioned that the floor was partially insulated and he wanted the contractor to insulate all of it. And it looks like they have. They've secured it with twine. The twine looks very close, anywhere from 7 to 10 inches, which exceeds the requirements, so they're doing good there. We got our fiberglass bed, and these are unfaced, so they have no craft paper on them. We'll see what the auditor is calling for on the work order. So the auditor called for R25 craft faced fiberglass bats. And these are unfaced, about 8 inches thick. So they are about an R25, but they're unfaced, which is not what the auditor called for. They wanted that vapor barrier up against the floor, keep moisture from getting in. So that's different than what the auditor called for. So we're gonna have to say that is a deviation from the work order, so that would be a failure. They didn't do what they were asked to do, missed that final print. So we're going to want to take note of that, report it back to the crew leader, see if he can correct this. And we also called for some water pipe rod. So you see if there's any water pipe in here. Didn't call for very much, so not very much water pipe. A little bit of water pipe right here, and it's been insulated with the preformed foam. Been attached with zip ties about every foot, so that's good there. That looks very good. Say that's definitely a pass on the water pipe. Make sure they sealed all the penetrations. Air boundary across the floor, and contractor put down new ground cover, keep the moisture from coming up out of the ground into the house. So under here I would say the water pipes pass, the floor insulation is good but doesn't have the crack barrier, so I'd have to say that was a fail. So that's all the work that they did under here. Air sealing, wrap the duct, wrap the water pipes, and that's it. It doesn't appear that the workers have caused any damage on the outside of the house, but we want to keep an eye out, make sure that they didn't damage anything through the course of their work. Now let's go inside and take a look at what they did inside.
Okay.
So inside, I'm going to check the CO again. Make sure it's safe in here. And if it ever goes over 35, then I want to abort and move to an area of fresh air. Currently I'm reading 1 part per million, so even a little tiny bit, but perfectly safe. But definitely keep an eye on that. Especially once we start doing our testing. So inside of the house, I'll make sure that they didn't leave a mess. And floor's looking a little messy. Could have vacuumed, cleaned up better. So that's something I'm gonna want to talk to them, just remind them that they need to be doing a good job cleaning up and not leaving debris behind. And then looking at the walls, mostly appear to be insulated. Of course these see-through walls make it easier, but over here where the walls are unfinished, Now that's a missed opportunity. They could have easily installed bats there. And I don't see it on the work order. Let's see what the auditor said about the walls. Said there's no knobbing tube. That's good. And he did make a note of this R0, these empty walls, and he wanted to add R13 to these, but never made it onto the work order. So, looks like the auditor missed out there, just made an error, never asked the contractor. So, not a failure on the contractor, but still missed opportunity by the auditor. You want to see if they still have funding to do that, have the contractor come back. Right here we got our CO detector, that's good. That since we have our combustion appliances, got our smoke detector. Here's our window that was never caulked. Seems to work fine. And then we got our U value 0.34. And we'll see what auditor wanted on it. So the old window was just a wood frame window, and they called for a vinyl window, and that's what was installed. It's got U value 0.34, which exceeds our code of 0.35. So that's all good there. And got our furnace and our water heater. We'll come back to those later, but I am noticing there's another missed opportunity for some air sealing there. There's a big hole there. I'm sure that's going to show up in our blower door test. So, pretty small house. Now I'm going to check up in the attic. See how the attic insulation turned out. I can already tell it's turned out a little messy here. I'd be pretty disgruntled if this was my house and they left a big mess.
Well, they told me it was, free, so I shouldn't care about the cleanup. It wasn't included with the cost.
Get my ladder up tall enough.
And I don't expect you to go all the way up there. Just go to the highest safe rung on the ladder.
Thank you. Alright, so when they were working in the attic, they would definitely need the proper respirator, clothes, eye protection. They gotta need power tools, hearing protection. So our attic access looking a little beat up here. don't know if the contractor beat it up or it was already like that. But we got our insulation here. Should be about an R38, about 7 inches, so a little compressed there. They did cover it, so the twine is not holding up. Got our coverage chart for insulation. So according to the chart, they're going to do an R38. They're going to need to install it at 13 inches. So I'm going to do some spot checks and see if they got it that deep. If I can reach something. Install the dam. Keep the insulation from spilling out. It's good. Got some pretty good weather stripping. I'll make that more airtight. So I'm seeing that they blew in fiberglass on top of the existing, and it's sitting at about 15 inches, so well over the R38 that they required. It's pretty uneven though, but even the lowest ends are above the minimum. Now up in the attic is where we have our ducts, both the supply and the return. And I'm not seeing that they did not air seal them and they did not insulate them. So that is a big failure right there.
Mm-hmm.
They were asked to air seal and insulate them and they did not. Now, as far as their insulation they blew in, they did baffle all the heat producing fixtures such as the flue pipe, the can lights, which can sometimes be heat producing. Those the auditor noted as IC rated, so those are good. Then we have our low soffit vents, those new ones they installed, those are baffled properly so as not to be blocked by the insulation. And our bath fan is vented and fairly airtight. So everything looks good except the ducts, which they clearly did not do anything with. So that'd be another failure. I want to have them come back and fix those, air seal them and insulate them as they were asked to, as well as they could fix this attic hatch a little better. So I do see an outlet right by this attic hatch that does not have a
Don't worry about that.
cover on it. They're gonna need to fix
Yeah,
that.
well, yeah, just don't worry about it.
So that electrical outlet doesn't have a cover on it, so that is a electrical hazard. guys working up there could have got
Mm-hmm.
electrocuted. That's it for the attic. So they blew in the R38, wasn't very level. They blew in plenty, so it's going to help make up for it. They did prep the attic according to the local code, which includes baffling around the high temperature areas and the attic vents. So I'm going to want to keep track of all the things that they need to come back and fix, create a punch list for them to come back and make sure that these things were all completed at the end. So far we have the floor insulation didn't have the craft barrier on it. They didn't air seal or insulate the ducts. The walls were not insulated, so that was the auditor's mistake. So those things are all failures that want to go on this punch list to make sure they get finished, get corrected. I think next we're about ready to start with our diagnostic testing. So I'm gonna go outside, measure exterior temperature so I can calculate my minimum draft, as well as check the gas lines for any leaks. Thermometer, turn that on. Measuring 54 degrees.
Okay.
Is my exterior temperature. I'm going to need to know that to calculate my minimum draft for my combustion appliances. And I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So, calculator. And I'm going to take my temperature outside, which was 54 degrees, divide that by 40, and subtract 2.75, and I get a negative 1.4, and that's going to be my limit in pascals for my minimum draft. 1.4. Next, I'll grab my gas leak detector. Make sure my CO monitor is still working. Measuring 1 part per million currently. If it goes over 35, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna start by adjusting the sensitivity. Make sure this thing is gonna measure the gas properly. We're dealing with propane here, so I'm gonna start the propane tank. Make sure there's no leaks. Check all these connections. 360. Now, if there was any leaks detected, I'd want to verify that with some soapy bubble solution. If they bubble up, then we have a leak. So far, no signs of any leaks. Check these linear pipe. Make sure there's no cracks. Anywhere it could leak. It's like my metronome. Now we can go back inside. Check for any leaks inside. CO inside, that's also 1 part per million. So here's our combustion appliances. Propane furnace and water heater. Both open atmospheric combustion. Commonly vented. Flue pipe. Got our smaller appliance coming in. Got our tanks. Water heater looks to be in good shape. Got a pressure relief valve. Important safety feature. An earthquake strap. The furnace is draft induced. It's got a little helper fan, but still is natural draft in atmospheric combustion. Air's coming in the front here. Got a very gentle slope, but I think it's going to meet our 1/4 inch rise per foot. And then when it goes through the ceiling, goes into the B vent. So we have our 1 inch clearance there with the metal flange between it and the sheetrock. So that looks good. And we'll check these gas lines here where it comes in. Be careful not to trip here, this is a trip hazard. Check the gas lines. Now, with these flex lines, we want to make sure that they're new and not older than 73 where they need to be replaced, but these are very new, as is the house. So do not need to be replaced due to age. No signs of any leaks. Our other appliance. Our electrical here is an extension cord. We want to check and see if that meets local code or not. So, no leaks. But if we did find a leak, soapy bubbles, verify it. So the food pipe system looks pretty good. When I was outside, I did notice that there was no roof cap, rain cap, so I could get some water intrusion in there, but otherwise it's looking pretty good. And like I said, with that extension cord, that could be a safety concern, just that it's not hardwired in the conduit. And better check the hot water temperature.
Yeah, there's no sink, so how would you do that if there was a sink?
If there was a sink, we do have a kitchen sink for the shop. You want to use that?
Yeah, sure. Show me how you do that.
I'll grab my thermometer. And we're going to want to find the faucet closest to the water heater.
Mm-hmm.
And being this is our pretty much our own sink, use this. Grab a cup. Hot water on. Gotta start warming up here.
Why do you use the cup again?
The cup is just gonna collect the.
Oh, okay. As opposed to just
water.
sticking it into the stream?
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. That's a good idea.
Now, if we had a good stream, we might be able to do it, but a cup just gives us a place where it's collected.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make sure that the water's not too hot
Mm-hmm.
or too cold, about 120 degrees. That way it's not wasting a lot of energy, but it's still going to be warm enough to sanitize. So I'm reading 108 and climbing. And the reason why we go to the closest one is it's going to be the hottest
Mhm.
one for scalding. Make sure
Mhm.
that none of the faucets can get too hot. So it's starting to level off. It's a little cool. At about 100, right about 114. So that's a little cool. Gonna wanna see if we can get that turned up a little bit. Get it at least to 120.
So you would actually turn it up if it wasn't to 120? That's kind of your threshold for how
Yeah,
hot you
if
feel
it
like it should be?
If it wasn't at 120, I'd want to get it up there just to be on the safe side
Mhm.
for disinfecting and things growing in there. started setting up for my diagnostics.
Okay.
Put the house in wintertime, natural conditions. Put my blower door up in this door here. I'm going to put my blower door up and an exterior door. And also in the living area, we have our bathroom fan. We have our supply vents, and then our return for furnace is right down here. And we've got a thermostat. Put my shroud on to get a nice airtight barrier around here. Want to make sure this thing fits nice and tight. It's not going to fall out on me. Big hose. Running at least 5 feet out away from the fan, away from the house. So the fan doesn't blow on it. Wind doesn't blow on it. Logo. I got my reference hose outside. Now with the blower door air leakage test for the house, I'm going to depressurize. So I got the fan going out. Go ahead and plug it in right now. Grab a second hose here. I'm gonna set that blower door aside for now. And I'm gonna move on to my combustion testing. So I'm gonna make sure my house is in fact in natural wintertime conditions. Everything's sealed up, windows closed, furnace is off, water heater's on pilot. So I do not want that to come on yet. Everything's set up. I'm going to start by measuring my baseline pressure. So I'm going to take my hose from outside, and I'm going to reference the pressure outside while inputting to this room. Turn my gauge on. And I'm going to measure the baseline. So I'm going to use the auto mode. So I'm going to use baseline, start. So I'm currently getting a baseline of 0, which makes sense since we're inside another building. It doesn't look like it's changing, so baseline is 0. Enter. Now I've adjusted for my baseline, but since there wasn't anything to adjust for, but if I had, it would automatically zero out whatever that pressure was. Otherwise I would have to manually subtract that away from my readings. But it's going to do that automatically. Got my baseline. And CO still at 1. And baseline. Time to start putting things into worst case depressurization, as I'm going to do my combustion testing next. So the first thing I want to do is turn on all exhaust fans, see what kind of impact that has on our CAS zone, which is this room here. I want to make things as negative as possible for that room. I'm going to turn on my bathroom fan. It goes further negative. Yep, going further, -0.8. And then we'll make sure our door is set properly. So if you want to take a step in here, you see, okay, do I want this door open or closed? So it's about the same, maybe a little bit better with the door shut. So now I'm going to turn on my furnace fan and see what kind of impact the furnace fan has on the CAS zone. That definitely made it worse. Down to -1.4. And then we'll check this door one more time, so we'll go in there. Oh, so closing this door made it a lot better, so I want to leave this door open so that it's in fact in worst case. So let's see what our worst case is. It looks like a -1.5 is our worst case for our combustion appliance zone. 1.5 pascals, and according to EPI standards for our commonly vented furnace and water heater and our draft induced, let's see, sheet here. draft furnace with commonly vented water heater, -5. So we're well within the limits of that. So we pass the worst case combustion appliance zone test. So it's safe under worst case. But next we want to move on to testing these appliances. So I'm going to grab a couple things, get ready, a mirror, grab another manometer to check draft. I'm going to set this manometer to pressure, input, to the through pipe. And then I'm going to get my combustion analyzer calibrated. So I'm going to take this outside right here. Fire it up so we can zero out outside.
Yeah. Oh. Didn't sleep at all last night. So tired. Battery dead? Oh crap! You guys have another one of those, don't you?
Yeah.
I have one in my truck too. If the other one doesn't work either. Well, actually, you're doing fine on time, but we'll pause it while you're looking for that. So we're
wherever it is.
Pausing the time right now so the candidate can get a functional combustion analyzer, combustion gas analyzer.
Oh yeah, here's a second.
You're not even at an hour yet, by the way. Ooh. Let's get this out of here.
Yeah, we'll set it on the table.
You guys are doing the mold thing.
Yeah, that was the last
Get the ideal black bodies. Well, maybe if you guys would keep your equipment calibrated, Dan.
Whatever who's in charge of that.
All right, you ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay, restarting the test now that the candidate has a functional carbon or combustion gas analyzer. He's about an hour in. Mine needs a new O2 sensor almost every 6 months when I send it in.
Is it a fire
Fire Tech. That's what it is. It's old.
Yeah.
Keep waiting for them to tell me that it's time to get a new one, but
So I'm going to set this thing to propane, and it's ready to go. Come on in. So, I'm going to bring my stuff in here. I'm going to start with the smaller BTU appliance, which is our water heater in this case. And there. I'm going to fire the smaller one, make sure it can, in fact, establish draft on its own without the furnace. I'm going to crank up the temperature. Sure, fire.
There it goes.
There it goes. And we have 1 minute for it to establish draft. If it doesn't establish draft after 1 minute, then it fails the spillage test. And we can tell if it's drafting by seeing if this mirror fogs up, which would show that it was not drafting. I'm not getting any fog on the mirror. So just give it a little longer, make sure it doesn't start backdrafting. Okay. It's looking very good. Alright, it's been almost a minute here and a little fog into the mirror, so passes that test, and it has a full minute as a time limit to get that going.
If it didn't pass, what would you do?
If it didn't pass, I would want to abort the worst case and test it again under natural. So it did in fact pass. So I'm going to check my draft, put in my pressure probe. I'm going to measure pressure here, inputting into the flue pipe. And I'm getting a very strong draft, negative 4.7, 4.8 pascals. And our minimum was, I'll have to look on my sheet, but it definitely exceeds the minimum, which was like a 1.4 or so. Yeah, 1.4 was the minimum, so it passes the draft test, which is good. So next, we check the CO, my combustion gas analyzer. So I make sure that this is running. Here running. And I'm going to look at the CO. I'm going to measure that on both sides of this baffle. That kind of divides the burner in half. Make sure that there's not high CO on one side versus the other. So the reading's starting to stabilize here, about 23 parts per million on this side. I'm going to check the other side now. Now we want to make sure this appliance reaches steady state efficiency where it's fully warmed up at the point at which it's most efficient. So this other side, looking at about 24 parts per million. Efficiency, not very good at 68, but not a high efficiency unit. It is running lower than normal. So we're getting about 23 and 24 for CO. So let this cool off. Go take a look at our chart here. So we measured below 25 parts per million and we passed both the spillage and draft tests, so we want to proceed with work. No recommendation, no action needed. So we passed our CAS limit. We didn't exceed it. We didn't spill, we passed draft. We're all good on the water heater. We're going to move on to the furnace. And let's see. Tests I need to do there. Crank this furnace on. So I'm going to turn the heat on now. Once it fires, I want to measure for any spillage, and again 1 minute is allowed, and after that it's not allowed to spill anymore. Test, we want to cancel out a worst case and test under natural conditions. So no fogging. Just going to take a look and make sure there's no fogging coming out this other side. And nothing coming out the other side. Make sure it wasn't spilling out smaller. So now measure draft on the furnace. The furnace needs to be more negative than negative 1.4, which was the minimum, and it's sitting about negative 4.0. So definitely passes. Well exceeds that. Means the gases are going out quickly enough. Combustion gases on the furnace.
Yeah, no, it sounds like something's coming in. Whatever. It's getting warmer in here, probably.
So CO still sitting at 1. Save. Let's go for a minute. Going, I'm going to grab a thermometer, measure heat rise. Got one right here. Take my slide temperature. Starting to stabilize. We're 150 parts per million CO. And efficiency is running 81%. So that's good efficiency since this is a 80% draft-induced propane furnace. Furnace, we're running between 26 and 100 CO, but we pass spillage and draft, so the CO is a little high. I'm going to recommend that CO be fixed. So HVAC guy needs to come out, readjust that, get it burning a little cleaner. Supplies running almost 93 degrees here. So 93. So I'll give my return. And then my temp, my heat rise, delta T will be the difference. Water heater. Turn that on. So about 67 on the return. So we have about 26 degree temp rise. So that's pretty good for his gas furnace. See what the manufacturer recommends here. They're recommended 30 to 70, so it's a touch low, but it's not so low that it would cause problems. But if we're sending the furnace guy, we might as well have him take a look at it too. So we're good. Our temp rise, our steady state efficiency is 81, VO is 50. It for the furnace.
Okay. If you want to do the oven, it's across the street.
Alright, grab our now we want to check all the gas lines, make sure those are all good. Check our CO, still running 1 part per million. So here's our propane oven. Want to make sure nothing's in it, nice and clean, no storage. Turn on our exhaust fan and turn this thing on to bake. Let it warm up. So I'm going to want to take my CO where it's not going to be diluted down. So it appears on this one, comes out right in the center here. Tiny sleeve in there. So I want to monitor the CO in there and in the room. While that's warming up, I'm going to go through this job file, make sure all the relevant signatures were obtained. So we got our signature on the work order. That's good. We got our audit. Just make sure everybody signed off on the audit. And, oh, here's nobody signed off on the audit. So that's something that's going to need corrected before the file's closed out. Then on our diagnostics, let's see how the furnace and water heater compared to what I measured. So the furnace is not drafting. It's drafting not quite as good as it is now, so definitely drafting better, but the CO is now higher on the furnace. So I'm going to make sure that gets corrected. Water heater was not drafting at all very well before, at only 1.1 Pascal negative. So it's doing much better now. It's good. And we got our relevant signature on the diagnostics. Got our signatures on the mold. Here's our ashtray, 62.2. The auditor's recommending 21 CFM continuous to meet ashtray. So we'll want to check that. Our oven's definitely fired. It's running about 200 parts. We're going to let it stabilize a little bit. So as far as maintaining my records, I keep notes on individual jobs in the client file, taking note of anything that is unusual, that needs corrected, that is a common occurrence with either the auditor or the contractor. And then I keep separate file log on contractors that have repeated problems. I can document that, and also to keep track of the work that needs corrected. I keep the files open, keep those with me until they've been corrected, and then get re-inspected and then get closed out. That way the file never gets closed without everything being corrected. And then periodically I like to review with the contractors common findings, common mistakes that they're making, so we can work towards preventing those in the future. So our CO stabilizing right about 70 parts per million. So for a gas oven, if our CO was between 100 and 300, we would want a CO detector installed, but it's below that. So we did already have a CO detector in the other house. If it was greater than 300, then we'd want to have the CO be serviced before any work was done, and make sure.
Okay, resuming testing.
All right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Is it recording?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
So our oven was below 100, so it's good. But if it was 100 to 300, we want to install CO detector and recommend that they fix the CO problem. If it was greater than 300, we wouldn't want to do anything till it's fixed, as well as installing a CO detector and ensuring we have proper exhaust ventilation at the rate of 100 CFM in the min, 25 continuous. So that's going to do it for our oven. Turn everything off. So oven passes, it's all good. So now we're going to do our blower door and whatnot. So I'm going to start my blower door test in natural conditions. Hose is hooked up. Green one referencing outside on the A channel. B1 input into the fan referencing to the inside on B channel. So I'm going to set the gauge to pressure flow and blower door 3, and I'm going to start by taking a baseline reading just because my old one got erased. Baseline, start. I'm getting a baseline of negative 0.1. Baseline, gonna automatically adjust for that. I'm gonna start on ring 2, lower door. And everything's in natural, furnace is off. Water heater set to pilot. Everything's sealed up. It's ready to go on the blower door. So I'm going to depressurize the house to 50. Pretty good. The auditor initially started at 1200, so very good reduction. I'd say their air sealing worked very well. So always the tighter the better. Now there's still some more opportunities, like around those windows. No quality. minimize any stack effect from holes in the bottom plate out through the top plate. So that big hole up there, that's definitely missed opportunity from the auditor. Should have mentioned that to the contractor. Pressure pan going. Here's my pressure pan. Grab my thermometer. And I want to make sure all my supply vents are open, free and clear. Nothing obstructing them. Pressure input to my pressure pan and measure the pressure of each one of these vents. See, kind of give me an idea of how leaky they are, where the leaks might be at. So this vent is running about a 1.0, and so not too bad. Anything above a 1 or a 2 is going to be too leaky, so that one's a little borderline. But our duct blaster will really tell us how leaky the ducts are. So this one's running about 2.0, 2 pascals, so that one's too leaky. Which we could assume since the ducts weren't sealed. This one's running just under 2, 1.8. This one's a bit on the leaky side as well. And then we can measure the return. We had a bigger one that would fit the grill. We could measure it, but seeing as we don't have one, we can't do that. Showing us some of these vents are still pretty leaky, especially that one and that one. See here, zonal pressures, yeah. Zonal pressure. So I'm going to measure the pressure in major zones attached to the conditioned space. So it's going to be the attic. Measure pressure right up in there, getting about a 42. So the attic's definitely mostly outside of the conditioned space, but still a little room for improvement. I'll look at the file and see what the auditor originally reported. And in the crawl space, we're getting about 47. So that means crawl space is mostly outside, and it's actually not very much room for improvement. It's very separated from the conditioned space. And we'll see what the auditor originally reported here. Originally had 40 in the attic, so pretty good improvement there, but still a little room for improvement. Probably get a bit better when they go and seal the ducts. That'll be reflected a little bit there. space started at 45 and now it's at 47, so a good improvement there. So next we'll do a duct blaster test. Duct blaster. Set up. I'm going to want to set this duct blaster up on the largest vent, which is, in this case, cold air return. Take my fan. You can hand me that roll of tape next. Thank you.
There's that one too, if you want it.
Flexible hose here. I'm going to do a pressurization test. So I'm going to point my fan where the air is blown in. Why don't you have your clothes in right next to
Sure. Nope.
There you go.
I do that at least once a week.
Alright, so the fan is hooked up. I'm going to take the furnace filter out to ensure that it's not obstructing anything. Furnace filter's looking pretty clean. A little rough around the edges. Then I'm going to tape off the rest of these vents. eliminating any of the intentional openings in the duct system. And then I'm going to measure the leakage out of the unintentional holes and cracks in the attic. One more right behind you. Now I've sealed all the vents up. Furnace filter out. I'm going to grab this manometer right here. Grab this green hose. My little pressure probe here. Drop this in a duct that is opposite of my fan. This way, we can measure the pressure in the duct. There we go. So I've got input A channel into the ducts, input B channel to the duct blaster. And I'm going to start with a total leakage test. So I need to make sure my ducts are open to the outside, so they're in the attic and the attic's vented, and then I want to make sure my house is open to the outside so I don't depressurize it, and I got the lower door open. So I'm going to turn this gauge on. My hose is hooked up. I'm going to do pressure flow. I'm going to do duct blaster B, as this is the black one. And I'm going to crank it up to 50, and that's going to be my total duct input. So for low on pressure, I'm going to add a ring and change the configuration of the ring. Running about 415 CFM as my total leakage. And let's just see what auditor had originally for total leakage. He had 300, so it's coming in a little leakier, but could be my tape blown off. But next I'll do a leakage to the outside test and figure out how much is going outside. So to do that, I'm going to need the blower door on, and I'm going to have it pressurize the house this time. And I'm going to just open all the way up. Got plenty of power. And I'm going to crank it up until the house goes to positive 50 this time. Whereas the blower door went to negative 50. CFM, leakage to the outside, and our local code states that it shouldn't be above 10% of the square footage, and our square footage is about 200 square feet, so we're definitely over that 10%. So still needs the ducts to be sealed. Still is too leaky, though it is better than the auditor reported. We measured 62, 63, and the auditor reported 200. So a lot better. Maybe there's probably a partial disconnect that they fixed, but they did not seal the ducts. So we're gonna want to still have the ducts sealed, have them come back and do that. So. So that's almost going to conclude things. I'm just going to go over this. So we made sure the workers use the proper personal protection equipment. Made our combustion test. Talk to the homeowner. Looking over the file and comparing that to the work that was done, there's some discrepancies. The auditor, wanted to have these walls insulated, but didn't inform the contractor. While the contractor was told to seal and insulate the ducts, but didn't do that. So there's some failures, some corrections that need to take place, and those are going to go on my punch list to have them corrected, and then come back and re-inspect that. Compared the auditor's diagnostics to what we got today, and furnace and water heater turned out good. The furnace had a little bit of high CO, so that needs to be corrected, but no leaks, nothing else that was unsafe. Oven was fine. Water heater temperature was kind of low. Floor insulation was the wrong material installed. They should have used the craft face. So that's going to be a failure. Our blower door test showed very good improvement on the airtightness of the house. But as the more airtight we get it, the more exhaust we're going to need in the house. So I'm going to measure exhaust fan flow, see what kind of flow we have. And the auditor calculated the ASHRAE requirement, determined it to be 21 CFM continuous, and this doesn't appear to be a continuous run fan, so that's also a problem. Discrepancy. I'll measure to see what kind of flow we have. Turn the gauge on, so the pressure flow device is going to be EXH for the exhaust fan, and I'm going to measure both the pressure and the flows simultaneously with this little T. Make sure I get the right ring selected. I'm going to start it on So looking at our switch here, just a basic switch, not a continuous run one. Ladder. Ring 2. So my pressure's pretty high, so I'm gonna open this up. Set this to ring 1. We get about 64 CFM at 2.2 pascals. And that is on ring 1. It's showing 65, so that's right there. So we get about 64, 65 on the exhaust fan. And Ashtray wants the bathroom fan to be 50 CFM minimum. So that meets that, but we don't have our continuous run of 21. So that is also another correction. That's going to need to happen that the auditor missed. You know, whether he installs another fan or puts the control on this one. I would say that the air sealing they did, the 1 hour, had good results, but there's a couple of big missed opportunities, like in the around the furnace there. It's going to conclude the inspection.
Okay.
Just clean up.
We should get your results back from BPI within a week or so. I have 48 hours to give them my report.
Great, thanks.